My girlfriend's sister destroyed my life with a lie that almost sent me to prison. The handcuffs clicked shut around my wrists at 6:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Two officers stood in my doorway while my parents watched in horror from the hallway. I was being arrested for something I didn't do, accused by a 17-year-old girl I'd known since she was 12. The worst part? Everyone I loved believed her instead of me. My girlfriend of 5 years, her entire family, even my own parents, looked at me like I was a monster. What I didn't know then was that 9 months of hell stood between me and the truth. Let me back up. My name's Daniel, and I'm 24 years old. 5 years ago, I met the girl I thought I'd marry. Her name was Sarah, and we'd been together since senior year of high school. We were that couple everyone thought would make it. Our families did barbecues together every summer. Her dad, Robert, taught me everything I know about fixing cars. We'd spend weekends in his garage rebuilding engines and talking about life. Her mom, Linda, treated me like the son she never had. She'd pack extra lunch for me during exam weeks and always save me a seat at their dinner table. Then there was Emily, Sarah's younger sister. When we first started dating, Emily was just this annoying 12-year-old kid who'd interrupt our movie nights and steal Sarah's clothes. Typical little sister stuff. I never paid much attention to her, honestly. She was just part of the background of my relationship with Sarah. Things started getting weird about 8 months before everything fell apart. Emily had just turned 17, and suddenly she wasn't that annoying kid anymore. She started acting different around me. At family dinners, she'd sit next to me instead of her usual spot. She'd laugh too loud at my jokes, touch my arm when she talked to me. I noticed, but I figured it was just teenage awkwardness. Maybe she was practicing flirting or something, and I happened to be there. I didn't think much of it. Then, the messages started. Late-night texts asking if I was awake. Pictures of her in outfits asking if they looked good. Messages saying she was bored and asking what I was doing. Nothing explicitly inappropriate, but enough to make me uncomfortable. I showed them to Sarah, thinking she talked to her sister about boundaries. Sarah just laughed it off. She said Emily probably had a harmless crush and would get over it. She told me not to make it weird by acknowledging it, though I didn't. I kept the messages brief and polite. I stopped responding after 9 p.m. I made sure I was never alone with Emily. At least I tried to make sure of that. The night that ruined my life started innocently enough. It was a Friday in October. Sarah had left that morning for a conference 3 hours away. He'd be gone for the weekend. Robert had called me that afternoon asking if I could help him install a new transmission in his truck. I'd been helping him with that project for weeks, and we were finally ready to drop it in. I headed over around 6 p.m. We worked in the garage for about 4 hours. It was one of those perfect fall evenings, cool enough that the garage wasn't sweltering, but warm enough that we didn't need jackets. We were making good progress, laughing and joking around. Linda brought us sandwiches and beers around 8. Emily was supposedly at a friend's house for a sleepover, or at least that's what everyone thought. Around 10 p.m., we finally got the transmission bolted in. Robert and I were covered in grease, exhausted but satisfied. We cleaned up in the garage sink, and I was getting ready to head home when Emily appeared in the garage doorway. She said she'd come home early because her friend's parents were fighting. She looked upset, so Robert went inside to talk to Linda about it. He asked me to wait a minute so he could give me the money he owed me for helping him buy parts. I stayed in the garage, wiping down tools and putting them away. Emily came back out a few minutes later. She said her laptop was acting weird and asked if I could look at it since I was studying computer science. Her parents were busy talking in their bedroom, so I figured it would take just a minute. She brought the laptop out to the garage. I opened it up, ran a quick diagnostic. It was simple, just some bloatware slowing things down. I showed her how to uninstall it. The whole thing took maybe 10 minutes. She was standing close to me, closer than necessary, watching the screen. I could smell her perfume, something sweet and too strong. I finished up, closed the laptop, handed it back to her. That's when she made her move. She leaned in and tried to kiss me. Just lunged forward, hands on my shoulders, lips aimed at my face. I jerked back so hard I nearly fell over the workbench. I pushed her away, not roughly, but firmly. I told her that was completely inappropriate and that she needed to stop. She looked shocked for a second, then her expression changed. Her eyes went cold. She called me a jerk and a tease. Said I'd been leading her on for months. I told her I had never, would never, that I loved her sister. She stormed into the house. I grabbed my jacket and got out of there as fast as I could. Robert caught me in the driveway, handed me 4 $20 bills, thanked me for the help. I drove home, hands shaking on the steering wheel. I thought about calling Sarah, but it was almost 11 and she was probably asleep. I decided to tell her in the morning. I'd explain what happened. We'd figure out how to handle Emily together. I never got that chance. The next morning, my phone started blowing up. Dozens of calls and texts from numbers I didn't know. Death threats. People calling me disgusting things I won't repeat here. I had no idea what was happening. Then Sarah's best friend, Jessica, sent me a message. Just one sentence. "I can't believe you did that to Emily." My stomach dropped. I called Sarah. She didn't answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. I called Robert and Linda. No answer. I drove to their house, but no one would open the door. I could see people inside through the windows. They were ignoring me. I finally got through to my own mom. She was crying. She asked me if it was true. I asked her what was true. She said Emily had told her parents that I'd been harassing her for months, that I'd gotten her alone in the garage and attacked her, that she had bruises to prove it, that there were text messages going back months where I'd been pressuring her. I felt like I was falling, like the ground had disappeared beneath me. I told my mom it was a lie, all of it. She wanted to believe me. I could hear it in her voice. But she also said Emily had evidence and that Sarah's family was going to the police. They did. That afternoon, 2 officers showed up at my apartment. They asked if I knew Emily. I said yes. They asked about my relationship with her. I explained I was dating her sister. They asked if I'd been alone with her recently. I told them about the laptop, about her trying to kiss me, about me pushing her away. They exchanged a look. One of them asked if I had any proof of my version of events. I didn't. They said they'd be in touch and left. 2 days later, they came back with an arrest warrant. The charges were serious, really serious. They involved a minor. Some of the fake text messages Emily had created were dated before her 18th birthday, which made the charges even worse. The officers read me my rights while my parents stood there in shock. They took me to the station, processed me, took my fingerprints and mugshot. I spent 6 hours in a cell before my parents could scrape together bail. The next week was a blur of legal meetings and devastating news. The university expelled me immediately. They didn't wait for a trial or even a hearing. The accusation alone was enough. My scholarship vanished with my enrollment. The tech startup where I'd been working part-time fired me. They said they couldn't risk the publicity. My supposed friends stopped returning my calls. My social media filled with hundreds of people who didn't know me, calling me a predator. Sarah sent me one message before blocking me everywhere. I saw the texts. I saw her bruises. I can't believe I ever loved you. The texts Emily had fabricated were sophisticated. She must have spent weeks on them. She'd somehow created fake message threads that showed months of me allegedly pursuing her, making inappropriate comments, asking her to keep secrets from Sarah. She'd taken real conversations we'd had and twisted them into something sinister. A message where I'd said, "You look nice," about a family photo became, "You look nice," under a selfie she'd photoshopped to look like it had been sent privately. She'd done this dozens of times. The bruises were real too. Finger marks on her wrists, a large bruise on her lower back. The police photos were damning. I had no explanation for them. I'd never touched her except to push her away that one time, and that wouldn't have left those marks. I found out later she'd asked her boyfriend to grab her roughly and hit her. She told him it was for some social media challenge. He didn't know he was helping her frame me. My lawyer, Trevor, was honest with me from the start. He said cases like this were incredibly difficult to defend. Physical evidence, text messages, a tearful alleged victim, no witnesses to support my version of events. The prosecutor was pushing hard. They wanted to make an example of me. Trevor said we were looking at a potential prison sentence of 15 to 25 years if convicted. My family spent everything trying to help me. My parents took out a second mortgage. My little sister Julia's college fund, nearly $30,000 they'd been saving since she was born, went to legal fees. Julia was only 16. She'd been planning to go to art school. Now that money was gone, spent trying to keep me out of prison. She never once blamed me, but I blame myself every single day. The court ordered me to stay in my parents' house under house arrest while awaiting trial. They fitted me with an electronic monitoring bracelet around my ankle. I could only leave for legal meetings and medical appointments. I watched through the window as my former life continued without me. Friends drove past the house without stopping. Sarah's family lived only 4 blocks away. Sometimes I'd see her car go by and feel like I was dying inside. The months dragged on. Discovery phase, depositions, preliminary hearings. Trevor kept working the case, but he was honest about our chances. The fake text messages were the biggest problem. They looked real. Emily had been smart about it. The metadata appeared correct on the surface. It would take a serious digital forensics expert to prove they were fabricated, and those experts cost money we didn't have. 9 months into this nightmare, 3 things happened that finally started to shift the case. First, Sarah's cousin Rachel reached out to Trevor. She said she'd been thinking about something for months and finally decided she had to come forward. She told him that Emily had a history of lying about guys. Nothing this serious before, but significant lies. In 9th grade, Emily had told everyone that a senior on the football team had asked her to prom when he'd actually asked someone else. When confronted, she'd shown people fake text messages then too. Rachel said she'd tried to tell Sarah's parents at the time, but they dismissed it as a misunderstanding. Second, a girl named Sophia contacted us through Trevor's office. Sophia's brother had briefly dated Emily the previous year. According to Sophia, Emily had threatened to accuse her brother of inappropriate behavior when he tried to break up with her. She'd explicitly said she knew how to fake text messages and that everyone would believe her over him. Sophia's brother had been so scared that he'd stayed in the relationship for 2 more months before finally ending it. He'd been terrified to come forward during my case because Emily had threatened to accuse him too if he said anything. But Sophia convinced him he had to tell the truth. Trevor immediately hired a digital forensics expert with what little money we had left. This expert, a woman named Dr. Patricia Chen, was expensive but supposedly the best. She examined the text messages for 3 weeks. She found inconsistencies in the metadata that proved the messages had been created in batches, all at once, not sent over months like they were supposed to have been. She found evidence that they'd been generated using a specific app designed to create fake text conversations. She could prove they were fabricated. The night before my trial was supposed to start, Robert called Trevor, Sarah's dad. I couldn't believe he was reaching out after all those months. Trevor put him on speakerphone so I could hear. Robert said he'd been going through old security camera footage from his garage. He'd been looking for something unrelated and stumbled across the footage from that Friday night. The camera wasn't positioned to see everything, but it showed me arriving at 6:03 p.m. It showed me and Robert working on the truck for hours. It showed Emily arriving home around 9:45 p.m. It showed her leaving the garage at 10:12 p.m., looking annoyed but completely uninjured. No limping, no holding her wrists, nothing. It showed me leaving at 10:16 p.m. Most importantly, it showed Emily going back out to the garage at 10:30 p.m., 20 minutes after I'd left. The camera showed her pushing the workbench hard enough to tip it slightly. Then she braced herself against it and deliberately bent her wrists backward at painful angles. Then she walked to the garage wall and repeatedly slammed her lower back against a protruding metal bracket. She did this over and over, checking her back in her phone camera until she was satisfied with the injury. The footage was grainy, but clear enough to show what she was doing. Robert said he'd almost deleted the footage when he first saw it because he couldn't believe it. He said he'd watched it 20 times, hoping he was misunderstanding what he was seeing. He said Linda had broken down crying when he showed her. He said Sarah had locked herself in her room and wouldn't come out. He said he was sorry. He said it over and over. He said he should have trusted me. He said he failed me. I couldn't speak. I just sat there while Trevor talked to Robert about getting the footage authenticated and admitted as evidence. The trial lasted only 1 day. The judge watched the security footage in the morning. Dr. Chen presented her findings about the fabricated text messages. Rachel and Sophia's brother testified about Emily's history of lying and threats. By early afternoon, the prosecutor asked to approach the bench. The charges were dropped, just like that. 9 months of hell, and it was over in less than 6 hours. Emily was charged with filing a false police report and fabricating evidence. She eventually pleaded guilty to reduced charges. Her sentence? 18 months of probation and 200 hours of community service. No jail time. No permanent record because she was processed as a juvenile for part of it. She had to write me an apology letter as part of her plea deal. It was 3 sentences long and read like her lawyer had written it. The damage to my life was permanent. The university refused to readmit me, even after the charges were dropped. They said too much time had passed, and my scholarship had been awarded to someone else. I'd lost a full ride to a good school. I'd accumulated $86,000 in student loan debt from my years there before getting expelled. Debt I now had no degree to show for. The tech startup had hired someone else for my position. My supposed friends never apologized for abandoning me. The social media posts calling me terrible things are still out there, still showing up when anyone searches my name. Sarah tried to reach out after the trial. She sent long messages saying she was sorry, that she'd made a terrible mistake, that she still loved me. I read the first one and deleted the rest without opening them. She'd believed her sister's lies over 5 years of knowing me. She'd blocked me without even listening to my side. She'd thrown away what we had based on fabricated evidence. I couldn't forgive that. I wouldn't. Robert and Linda tried too. They offered to pay for a lawyer to help me sue Emily, to help me clear my name publicly, whatever I needed. I appreciated it, but I just wanted to move away and start over somewhere nobody knew what had happened. My family was destroyed financially. We lost the house because of the second mortgage. My parents had to declare bankruptcy. Julia had to go to community college instead of art school. She never complained once, but I'll carry that guilt forever. My little sister's dreams got sacrificed because Emily decided she was angry at being rejected. I moved to a different state as soon as my legal obligations were finished. Started fresh at a smaller university. It took me 2 more years to finish my degree. I worked 3 part-time jobs to pay for it because I'd maxed out my federal student loans and couldn't get private ones with my destroyed credit. I graduated last spring with a degree in software development. I found a job at a mid-sized company making $68,000 a year. It's a decent salary, but I'm so far behind where I should be. Most of my graduating class had 2 years of career advancement already. I'm just starting. I have a dog now. Her name is Riley. She's a rescue mutt who doesn't care about my past. I have 3 friends I actually trust, all people I met after moving who don't know the whole story. I go to therapy every week to work through the trust issues and anger. My therapist says I'm making progress. Some days I even believe her. I still can't sleep well. I still have moments where I see a police car and feel my chest tighten with panic. I still check my phone obsessively, terrified of waking up to another false accusation going viral. I haven't dated anyone since Sarah. The thought of letting someone get close enough to hurt me again makes me physically ill. My therapist says that might change eventually. I'm not sure I believe that either. Last month, I got a Facebook friend request from Emily. I stared at it for a solid minute before blocking her. I don't know what she wanted. Forgiveness, maybe? Or to see if I was still thinking about her? It doesn't matter. She took 9 months of my life. She took my education, my career prospects, my relationship, my family's financial security, my sister's future, and my ability to trust people. She did all of that because I rejected her attempt to kiss me, because her ego couldn't handle being told no. The worst part is knowing how close I came to prison. If Robert hadn't found that security footage, I'd probably be in prison right now. Dr. Chen's analysis and the witness testimony helped, but that video was the thing that definitively proved my innocence. Without it, the case would have been much harder to win. I got lucky. I got incredibly, impossibly lucky, and it still destroyed my life. Looking back now, I don't know what I could have done differently. Should I have been more aggressive about documenting Emily's inappropriate behavior? Should I have insisted Sarah take it more seriously? Should I have refused to help Robert that night? I've replayed every decision 1,000 times and I still don't have answers. What I do know is that the system failed me in every possible way. A false accusation was enough to expel me, fire me, and turn everyone against me before I'd even had a chance to defend myself. Even after being proven innocent, there's no real path to restore what was taken. No university reinstatement, no job offers, no public apology campaign to undo the damage to my reputation. Just a quiet dismissal of charges and a collective shrug from everyone who'd rushed to condemn me. I'm not the same person I was before this happened. That version of Daniel died the morning the police put handcuffs on him. I'm rebuilding something new from what's left, but I'll never be whole the way I was. Riley is sleeping on my feet right now while I type this. My therapy appointment is tomorrow. I'll go to work on Monday and write code and pretend I'm just another normal 24-year-old starting his career. And maybe someday I'll actually believe that's true. Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.